Hola amigos, bienvenidos nuevamente. Welcome back to Serious Spanish. I am Michelle, and today we're going to talk about how to conjugate regular verbs in Spanish. So, to do that, we need to go back and remind ourselves what is an infinitive verb, because we're going to be starting there. And as you'll remember, an infinitive verb is simply a verb that is not conjugated. And in Spanish, verbs always end, the infinitive verbs always end in the letters AR, ER, or IR. And if it ends in those letters, you know it's an infinitive. It is not conjugated. It is not, the ending has not changed, in other words, to agree with the subject of the sentence or who is performing the action. So, let's take, for example, the verb trabajar. Trabajar. It means to work. This is the infinitive form of the verb. Now, what we're going to look at here is the ending of this infinitive verb, in this case, is AR. It is what we call an AR verb. And the other part of this word, of this verb, the trabaja, is what we call the stem. So you will hear those terms quite often, the ending and the stem of a verb. And the stem of a verb is simply the part that we have left when we take off the two-letter ending, which is AR, ER, or IR of an infinitive verb. When we're discussing regular verb conjugations in Spanish, we simply mean those verbs in which, when we conjugate the verb, the stem here does not change. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. The verbs that we conjugate today are going to be regular verbs, which means when we put them in their yo, tú, él, nosotros, and so on forms, the stem will remain the same as it is in the infinitive form. So, how do we do that? Well, let's take, for example, AR verbs. And as always, I like to draw this grid in which on the left-hand side, we have our singular persons. Yo, for I, tú, you, usted, you formal, él and ella, he and she. And on the right-hand side, again, we have our plural persons, nosotros, vosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas, etc. Okay, so how do we conjugate these regular AR verbs in Spanish? Well, we simply take the stem, which is, we take off the AR, and for yo, we add o. For tú, we add as. Usted, él, and ella, we add a. Nosotros, we add amos. Vosotros, we add ais, which is always accented on the a, ais. And for ustedes, ellos, ellas, we add an. So let's go ahead and go back to that verb, trabajar, and see how we conjugate that given the pattern that I just presented. I want you to repeat after me to work on your fluency. So, trabajar, to work. I work, yo trabajo. You, informal, you work, tú trabajas. Now remember, for many of these, we don't even have to say yo trabajo because trabajo is only paired with yo. So if we hear trabajo, that means I work. Okay? Moving on. Usted, you, formal. Él or ella, he or she works, trabaja. We work, nosotros trabajamos. In Spain only, we use vosotros, okay? So to conjugate this, which means you guys, informally, vosotros trabajáis. Vosotros trabajáis. Great. Ustedes, meaning you all, in the rest of Spanish-speaking Americas, or ellos, they, trabajan. Trabajan. All right. Now, okay, so when we say trabajo, what exactly does that mean? Trabajo can mean I work, I am working, or I do work, depending on the context. And likewise, if we say trabajas, it can mean you work, you are working, or you do work, and so on and so forth with each of the persons in our conjugation chart. No trabajo can mean I don't work or I'm not working. And then to ask a question, trabajas or trabajas tú, it means do you work or are you working? And again, we take the meaning from the context. Now, we're going to do a little exercise and look at some other regular AR verbs and fill in the blanks. So we're going to start with looking at our verb list here, and I am going to pronounce the word, let you repeat it, and then I will give you the translation for what that word means. And then we're going to do some fill in the blank exercises with these AR verbs. So the first verb is comprar. Comprar means to buy or to purchase. Llegar, to arrive. Descansar, to rest. Nadar, to swim. Trabajar, to work, as you know. Cantar, to sing. Cocinar, to cook. Estudiar, to study. Bailar, to dance. Hablar, to speak or to talk. So let's look at some examples. I am going to give you a sentence with a blank, and you need to choose the correct verb that we're going to use, and you need to conjugate that to agree with the subject of the sentence. So let's look at this one. Tu hermana, which means your sister, blank, en el lago, in the lake. So out of all of these, which verb makes most sense there? Did you say nadar, to swim, nadar? If you did, you were right. Okay, so how do we conjugate that, though, to agree with tu hermana? Tu hermana can be substituted. We can substitute ella, she, okay? Your sister, she. Ella, remember the ending that we add to the stem of the verb is a. And the stem of nadar, if we take the AR off, is NAD, and we would add a. So, tu hermana nada en el lago. So, repeat. Tu hermana nada en el lago. Your sister swims in the lake. Good job. And if that word nada looks familiar, you may have seen it to mean nothing. And that is another meaning of the word nada. But in this example, it is a verb. Let's look at the next. Si estamos cansados. If we are, okay, so we have omitted nosotros because we don't need it, because we know estamos means we are. Cansados is tired. Blank en el sofá. And this sofá should have an accent mark over the A, so that is a mistake. So correct it on your notes. On the sofa or on the couch. Okay. So if we are tired, what verb would we use? Ooh. To rest. How do we say we rest? Well, we take off the AR and we add the ending amos for nosotros. So our sentence would be, si estamos cansados, descansamos en el sofá. So make sure you repeat that after me. If we are tired, we rest on the couch. Good. Los jóvenes. El joven means young person. Los jóvenes, the young people. Blank y blank en la fiesta. So the young people blank and blank at the party. So let's look up here. What two would work? Did they swim? Maybe not. Do they work at a party? Probably not. What about sing? Yeah, they probably sing, and I'll say dance at the party. So how would we conjugate that? Sing. Los jóvenes are ellos, and so we would say los jóvenes cantan y bailan. So repeat after me. Los jóvenes cantan y bailan en la fiesta. The young people sing and dance at the party. Muy bien. Very good. Let's move on. Tú siempre, you, informal, always blank a casa a las 5 de la tarde. So a casa, if you are going in the direction of something, means home, like to home, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or evening. So which of our verbs up here would make most sense? Llegar, to arrive. And so, what ending do we use for tú? As. So, tú siempre llegas a casa a las 5 de la tarde. You always arrive home at 5 in the afternoon. And our last example here. Yo, blank, en un restaurante. I, blank, in a restaurant. Soy cocinero. I am a cook. Y, and, blank, en la cocina. In the kitchen. So let's see. Something in a restaurant. Maybe I work. Yo trabajar. So we would conjugate that as trabajo. I am a cook, and maybe I cook in the kitchen. Cocinar is to cook. We take off the AR and we add O, and we get cocino. I cook. So let's read that and then repeat after me. Yo trabajo en un restaurante. Soy cocinero y cocino en la cocina. I work in a restaurant. I am a cook, and I cook in the kitchen. Excelente. Good job. All right, now we're going to look at the regular ER verbs. It's very similar to the AR. We take off the ER, the ending, and to the stem of the verb for yo, we add o. For to, we add es. So es. Usted, él, and ella, we add e. Nosotros, we add hemos. Vosotros, we add es. So it's a different sound. Es for usted and es for vosotros, which we use in Spain. And for ustedes, ellos, and ellas, we use en. So let's do another exercise with these regular ER verbs. I will read the verb and give you the translation, and you will repeat it. Leer, to read. Comer, to eat. Aprender, to learn. Correr, to run. Comprender, to understand. Now, you may have heard a different word for to understand, and that is correct. There is another verb that means to understand, which is actually more common, but it is not a regularly conjugated verb. So we are going to focus on comprender today. Beber is to drink. Beber. And there is another verb that is commonly used to mean to drink, especially in Mexico and Latin America. But we are going to focus on beber today. So let's look at our first example. Si yo camino, if I walk, y ella, and she blank. ¿Quién llega primero? ¿Quién is a question word to mean who. Llegar, as we just learned, means to arrive. So who arrives? Primero is first. So, si yo camino y ella. Okay, what's another way we can get somewhere? Looking at these verbs above. Maybe correr, to run. So, how do we conjugate correr for ella? Remember, we take off the end and we add to the stem, we add e. So, our answer is ella corre. So, I'm going to read it and then you repeat. Si yo camino y ella corre, ¿quién llega primero? If I walk and she runs, who arrives first? Muy bien. Next example. Ana, blank, 7 vasos de agua cada día. Anna, something, 7 glasses of water each day. What makes sense up here? Beber. And to conjugate beber for Ana, who is ella, we would say Ana bebe 7 vasos de agua cada día. Anna drinks 7 glasses of water each day. Próximo ejemplo, next example. Nosotros, and if you hear my dog or my kids, I apologize. It is virtually impossible to rule out all external noise. But we'll just try to do our best. Nosotros, blank. En restaurantes, so we, blank, in restaurants, todos los domingos, all the Sundays, or in other words, every Sunday. And no, that's not a typo. The days of the weeks are not capitalized in Spanish as they are in English. So going back to our verb, what do we do in restaurants? Well, generally, we might read, but more than likely, we eat. To eat. So if we're saying we eat, nosotros comemos. Nosotros comemos en restaurantes todos los domingos. We eat in restaurants every Sunday. Ustedes estudian bien. So you guys study well sus lecciones, your lessons, y and blank mucho, a lot. So if you study your lessons well, you probably are learning a lot. So aprender, conjugated for ustedes, just like it would be conjugated for ellos, is we drop the ER, and to the stem we add en. Ustedes estudian bien sus lecciones y aprenden mucho. You guys study your lessons well and learn a lot. Our final example here, tú, so you, familiar, blank, muchos libros, a lot of books. Y and blank, las ideas difíciles, the difficult or hard ideas. So, what do you do in the first blank? Mucho means a lot, but when it's used to describe a plural noun, it means many. So you do something with many books. Maybe leer, to read. And if we say tú, we need to conjugate it with es. So tú lees muchos libros. Y difficult ideas, hard ideas. You understand hard ideas, difficult ideas? Comprendes. So let's read that again. Tú lees muchos libros y comprendes las ideas difíciles. You read a lot of books and you understand difficult ideas. Excelente, amigos. Okay, now let's look at how do we conjugate the IR verbs. We take the ending IR and take that off, and to the stem we add, for yo, we add o. This is very similar to the ER verbs. For tú, we add es. Usted, él, and ella, we add e. I'm going to jump over here to ustedes, ellos, or ellas, we add en. So, in all of these, you can see this forms kind of an L. For all of these persons, our conjugation is going to be the same as it is with ER verbs, regular ER verbs. The difference is for nosotros and vosotros. In nosotros, we'll take this stem of the verb and add imos for our IR verbs and is for our for vosotros. Let's look at some examples. Here's our word bank. Repeat after me. Abrir. It means to open. Compartir. To share. Decidir. To decide. Discutir. To discuss. And it can also mean to argue depending on our context. Escribir. To write. And it can also mean to type if you say escribir a máquina or escribir a computadora. So depending on what we write with, it could mean to type as well. Okay. Recibir, to receive. Subir, to go up. And if you're getting, say, on a bus, usually you use this verb as well as like to get on. Or subir al carro, to get in the car. Vivir, to live. So let's look at some examples here. La niña, the girl, blank, los juguetes con el niño. Los juguetes is the toys. Con, with, el niño, the boy. So we're talking about doing something with toys with a boy. Which verb would you choose? I think to share, compartir. So how do we conjugate that for la niña, who is she, ella? La niña comparte los juguetes con el niño. The girl shares the toys with the boy. Well, that's a giveaway that shouldn't have come up. So here's our example. Las mujeres trabajan. The women work en la ciudad, in the city. Pero, but, and our answer popped up before our sentence. Viven, so we took vivir, we took our stem, viv, and added en because las mujeres are ellas, them, they, actually they, viven en el campo, in the countryside. So let's read that again. Las mujeres trabajan en la ciudad, pero viven en el campo. The women work in the city, but live in the countryside. Our next example is a question. Blank usted. Remember, this is how we can abbreviate usted with a capital U, D, and period. And this is the way, the formal way that we express you, singular. So speaking to someone we don't know too well, we would probably use usted. Okay, so the question is, blank usted, frases y preguntas. So phrases and questions con una pluma, with a pen, o un lápiz, or a pencil. So do you do something? Phrases and questions with a pen or a pencil. Sounds like they're writing, right? And I remember the word for to write, escribir, when I think of a scribe back in old times, somebody that wrote things down, okay? So escribir, so we take the root or the stem, escrib, and for usted, we add simply e. So, and of course it's not going to give our order is a little bit out of whack, but the answer is escribe. Do you write? Escribe usted frases y preguntas con una pluma o un lápiz? Do you write phrases and questions with a pen or a pencil? Okay, good. Now, the next example is yo, I, okay? Yo something, las escaleras. Las escaleras, the stairs, okay, the stairway. Para llegar, so para means in order to, or we could translate it in English as simply to. Llegar, you just learned to arrive or to get somewhere. A clase, to class. So I something the stairs to get to class. Well, what would you do on the stairs? Maybe go up, subir. And if we want to say I go up, we need to take subir, take off the IR, so we have the stem, sub, and add o. So, yo subo las escaleras para llegar a clase. I go up the stairs to get to class, basically. And our last example is a question. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué, if you'll remember, is a term that means why. ¿Por qué blank tú la puerta? So you are doing something with la puerta, the door. Si hay, if, and remember hay is there is or there are. Mucho ruido, a lot. Ruido is noise. So a lot of noise. Afuera. Afuera means outside. So you do something with the door. What would you do with the door? To decide on the door, probably not receive the door. Maybe open the door? Yes, abrir. And to conjugate abrir, we take the root abr and we add es. So the answer is abres. So repeat. ¿Por qué abres tú la puerta si hay mucho ruido afuera? Why do you open the door if there's a lot of noise outside? And the first time I tried to read this for you, I said, ¿Por qué abres la puerta? And that's okay. We don't need to include tú, because abres only goes with tú. It was in your exercise so that you would know how to conjugate the verb. Wonderful. Well, what I can tell you is just to sigan practicando. Keep practicing. Conjugations of verbs typically seem a little awkward at first, but you will get the hang of it. So work on the exercises that you can find on the internet or in your book and keep working on those, and it will become more and more natural as you continue to work on them. Thank you for joining, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.